Okay, let's begin our study session on June 26, 2007. Roll call, please.
The record will show that all members are present.
Except for Mr. Henn. It's okay. He's on his way. He guaranteed that he'd be here in a few minutes.
Turn this chair around to full you.
We're going to move on to current business, but we're not going to do clarification of items on the consent calendar until, well, actually, why don't we just do it? And he had a few that he wanted to talk about. We'll get those when he gets here. So why don't we start? Nancy, any clarifications on the consent calendar? No? Leslie?
The item, is it S29? That's the trailers with a...
That's right.
Okay. Is there any kind of an interim plan that would address kind of our facility needs with the City Hall administration prior to a new City Hall being built? And what I'm getting at, it seems to me that we have some large properties, utilities, yards, general services. Are there any opportunities there to expand those facilities?
We don't have any such plan. And I think when we started down this trail, we didn't know how long it would take, and we probably still don't know the answer to that question. So I realize that we're piecemealing it. I see this item with this trailer as being the last one that we're going to throw at the situation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilman Webb? Is that it?
But I do have another item on that. As a matter of fact, we underestimated the cost. It says the cost is $43,000. It's really $15,000 more than that. The electrical we thought was included, but just hooking up the electrical is going to be $15,000, so that's $58,000. I would make that correction, later in the meeting when we start.
Mr. Mayor, I did have one.
Excuse me?
I did have one clarification.
Oh, go ahead.
Number 8. The curbing to Pelican from Cameo Highlands entrance to Pelican Hills Drive.
It's included in that contract.
I see that, but it really doesn't need to go that far. So would that affect the price? I mean, there's already curbing from the end of Cameo Highlands all the way.
Yeah, it's the missing segment there. It's just hard to describe. Mm-hmm.
Councilman Webb?
Okay, on item 3, the ferry, I just was wondering if the Finance Committee in their deliberations had taken into consideration the very significant fare increase that has been in effect. It appears to me, at least, that you're going to get almost a 40% increase in revenue next year. And their revenues over the last 10 years have increased approximately 27% without this fare increase. We are decreasing from 6% down to 5% the amount that they give us, just so that we can get a floor, I guess you might say, and that floor is escalating, but it's going from, say, $72,000 to $99,000. But to me, as I look at it, it looks like that if we were to just continue with the 6% with no floor, that and revenues remained even, they don't increase in everything, that it's going to take 10 years before at 6% we'd ever get to that floor. So that I look at this as being about $150,000 or $140,000 loss to us over a 10-year period because of the reduced percentage, because I don't think we'll ever reach the floor. So I guess my question was, did the Finance Committee take into consideration a roughly 40% increase in revenue when they were making their recommendation on the 5%?
Mr. Mayor?
Well, and I'd love for you to answer that question, but, are we getting into discussing the item at this point?
No, this is for clarification of items on the consent calendar.
I just don't want to create a problem. Well, especially because the Beeks are not here to hear about it.
Right, and they should be here, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. The committee did consider that. The totality of the agreement has a couple of considerations. First of all, while there is an increase that's been presented to the Public Utilities Commission for approval for the ferry fares, it's from 60 cents to $1. So while that's 40%, in terms of absolute dollars, it's a relatively small amount. It should be noted, it was testified by the committee, or at the committee, that the ferry operation, in fact, has been losing money in recent years in terms of the overall economics there. Now, there are various assumptions that you can make. For example, the new agreement provides a floor that is, in fact, higher than the rent that's been paid in recent years. It also places the operator at risk for substantial spikes in the cost of living index, which would cause that to go up at a more rapid pace than would otherwise be the case. And there's been a change in the amount of real estate that's subject to the lease of the underlying agreement. When you put all of those, and it's a long-term lease, and because of the cost of living adjustment over time and over a relatively short period, we will in fact generate additional income under the new lease proposal as opposed to the status quo. Those were all issues that were considered by the committee.
All right. And I appreciate Councilman Curry's summary and points that he made, and I think that accurately characterizes what the committee considered. There's also additional issues concerning liability. You know, some years ago, the ramp was kind of slippery, and the phone truck, well, let's say Ma Bell ended up in the bay. So you have liability issues. You also have the cost of their business increasing, increased cost in fuel, as well as environmental types of things. You know, you're no longer able to kind of haul out your boat and start scraping. Additional considerations are is the goodwill. Certainly the Beaks. They hire young people in town, and they also are have the requisite training for skipper and so on. I think as Councilman Curry pointed out, the lease area has changed from 12,000 to 9,000, and I believe it's a loss of 100 feet of beachfront. So there has been a loss of area. Additionally, there is a minimum rent which wasn't there before. So those were some of our considerations.
Was there also discussion about the fact that the lease requires approximately $200,000 worth of improvements to the?
Yes.
Okay. If I might also, for purposes of clarification, if the council acts on this tonight, the Exhibit B needs to be identified a little differently. It has a identification up in the corner that says area of improvements, and that's really supposed to be the area where the ways, which is the section that they're giving up, need to be removed. So that'll be just a language change that we'll go ahead and make, but I just thought I'd put for the record that we would need to make that change.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councilman? That's it. Councilman Henn.
We're on clarification
Yes,
items?
we are. I stalled for you. All right, why don't we move on to Councilman Curry? We'll give Councilman Henn time.
Thank you.
No items, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Selitz?
Nothing here.
And I have none at this point. So I'll leave that up to you then, Mike.
Okay, let me catch up with the train here. Apologize for that.
Pick an item from 1 to 10.
1 to 18?
1 to 18, plus 29 or something.
Yeah.
28 and 29.
This applies to item number 4, and I'm at the top of page 3 of the staff report. It says the city's actual match requirements will depend on which projects obtain grant funding, but are expected to fall within the 20 to 30% range. I'm assuming that means it could amount to $1 million to $1.5 million. And my question is the city, I want to just be sure that the city is not obligated to do that this is still an individual item-by-item obligation that we would adopt at the time.
Councilmember Henn, you're correct. The adoption of this resolution does not obligate us to actually take a second step to receive the grant should we be interested in doing that. That would come back to you again with a full budget.
If we're unhappy with the match requirement at that time,
we
can
could
simply
not accept it.
Receive
Right.
the grant. Okay. And then on item number 13, which is the AYSO field lighting item, there was mention in the staff report of ongoing operational issues. I was just curious what those were.
Yes, the reason I put that in the staff report, because if you refer to the commission minutes that were from the PV&R Commission when we held that public meeting to gain input on the establishment of the lights for the third field, some residents expressed concern that lights in general left on till 10 o'clock at night was a problem, and that they would like to see the lights all 4 fields. 3 are up there already. maybe be shut down at 9. And we continue to work with the groups and the neighbors on those ongoing issues. They were really outside the purview of this particular project, but are just issues of traffic, noise, and other things that go with youth sports. And so, since that was in the minutes, I just wanted to address it in the report, that it wasn't lost on us, and we'll continue to work on that too, along with the installation of these lights.
Those other issues are not really germane to this decision per se here.
No. My answer to that would be no, because we already have 3 lit fields there, and those issues were there long before
be there
this
whether
came
we
up,
do
and
the
they're going to
field
be
or
there
not.
even if we don't like this field. So
Okay.
I just wanted to address it because it was in the PB&R minutes.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, and then we'll move on to our department budget overview. I think we had Public Works as the last department that needed to give us a report.
Yes, Public Works is the last department to report, although Dennis has a report on several of our funds in the budget. So I think we're looking at a short study session, getting into closed session early tonight.
Okay, well, let's begin.
Okay, we got the lights. Okay, we'll just get right into it here. Thank you, Homer. Thank you, Council. Of course, our mission statement to provide quality, cost-effective public works and services to the community of Newport Beach. And as you can see, that's our gang in the picture there, and you can see we're somewhat wardrobe impaired.
Great celebration of century.
Well, there's a few missing there. But essentially, we're all about public infrastructure management. As you're aware, everything from the piers, parks, open space, beaches, the buildings, roads, sidewalks, storm drains, walls, traffic signals, signing and striping, and water quality, and whatever you throw our way, other duties as assigned. Our core services essentially revolve around the capital improvement program. We do a lot of traffic planning and traffic management, as well as the traffic signal operations that and as you know, we're heavily involved in trying to improve those. Plan check and development services, working along with planning and building department and processing development plans and private residential upgrades and building permits. Water quality engineering is one of our primary efforts right now. Of course, the management of the public right-of-way through the encroachment agreements and permits. And we have about $14.50 a year at this point, just kind of give you an idea of how many come through. And of course, general engineering and customer services, helping folks out with their projects, solving various problems that occur, and also the infamous Assessment District Administration, which you'll hear more about tonight on the regular agenda. I apologize for this slide, it's not that clear, but we're essentially organized into 3 groups right now: administration, engineering services, and transportation development services. And admin, we're in 6 full-time plus some part-time. In engineering services, which is essentially the CIP, we're 17 full-time with a little over 1 on the part-time equivalents. And on the transportation and development services, essentially the traffic engineering and development review work, we're up to 10 folks full-time with some part-time work. Essentially, the budget is no big changes this year. We're showing we're actually down this year. In fact, those numbers kind of show us with our actual numbers that are estimated, which are quite a bit lower, and the reason for that is because we have quite a bit of savings in salaries because of the vacant positions. But essentially our budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of about, I think it's just a little over 1% difference from last year's proposed budget. Same amount of employees and all that too as well. We aren't really proposing any changes this year. Some of the highlights in our M&O budget is that a lot of our work is not just the employees, but we're currently managing 45 outside consultants. We have 2 equivalent full-time contract project managers working with us at this present time, and we have about 10 on-call consultants for various engineering, disciplines, traffic, soils, mechanics, material testing, those types of services, as well as surveying and other miscellaneous services that come along. Another big change is our traffic signal maintenance, which is now at $244,500. We went out to bid this year, and that's our new number, and that continues to go up. One of the big issues that we had with that is that now that the courts are telling us that we have to pay prevailing wage for a lot of these services, and we're getting socked with some additional costs somewhat. But we've been working very closely with the traffic signal maintenance folks to try to pare down the work and try to use less skilled workers for various types of things like changing bulbs and things like that in traffic signal maintenance. Our 80/80 accounts and admin, kind of a small amount for records management and some consulting services. In engineering, it's mostly for the miscellaneous engineering studies that come up throughout the year that are not associated with the CIP. And as you know, in transportation and traffic engineering, we do a lot of little miscellaneous studies that come up, investigations of various issues that are brought before us. Our supplemental requests are not too large, but we are doing somewhat of a realignment of positions, which increases our salaries and benefits a bit, $13,837. That's not associated with the proposed reorganization that I mentioned during the CIP process. We're still working on that, and that's something that we'll probably be bringing back to you. But it's going to be our intent that when we do this reorganization, we're going to stay within the existing budget parameters that you're going to establish, hopefully tonight when you pass the budget. So we won't be coming back to you for additional funds for that reorganization.
How does that work if you're a city engineer and you become a deputy director, that there's no change to the budget?
Well, I think briefly, the way I put that together was I'm essentially combining positions and downgrading certain positions. I think a good example is instead of having 7 principal engineers, we're down to 1 or 2 principal engineers, and with upgrading some of the other positions, and then the funds left over are allowed to supplement positions. We're going from the proposed reorganization. We'll go from having a traffic engineer and a city engineer, essentially 2 division heads, to 1 division head. So we're going to be able to save money and also be able to create a higher level position that might be more attractive in the marketplace.
So part of what is enabling that is salary savings then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I suppose I would consider salary savings to be savings. And I know when I discussed it with the city manager, he had an openness to having council looking at reclassifications, because it seems to me that it does place a new fiscal demand on the budget. And, that would be something that I think city council would like to take a look at.
But the intent of this reorganization would be not to put any demand on budget. In fact, in most cases, we're going to be essentially downsizing the positions in order to supplement other positions. So there would be a net zero increase.
Once we get this all figured out, hopefully in the next month or so, we'll be coming back to the city council and explain, how this would take place.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then reclassifications in general, would you also have the same sense that, this might be something council wants to take a look at? Okay, thank you.
Would that be reclassifications at all levels? Like
No.
when you have so you really need to specify what you're interested in having a look at reclassification.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that. I think it would be the intention, at least on my interest, would be management and above.
Okay. Continuing on, part-time salaries are up $40,000, and that's really to match what we've really been running in additional help. We've been using a lot of part-time work to help supplement the vacancies, and I think we see that going on for somewhat longer as it's going to take time to fill some of the positions that are currently vacant. We're also increasing our utilities and telephone numbers by 4,000. We're trying to do some wireless connections for our inspectors out in the field. We're doing this in conjunction with the move of the inspectors out into the trailer out front. So that should be very useful for us to get good information out in the field. And then lastly, as I'd mentioned, we just redid our traffic signal maintenance agreement, and it appears it's about $30,000 over what we had budgeted last year, and that's will actually match what our actual expenditures are proposed to be for this year. Homer asked us to list some successes, so not to be outdone, we decided to give you all of these projects and everything from the Balboa Island projects all the way to major paving and the Corona Del Mar State Beach, which was an important one. We've got basic sidewalks, a flashing crosswalk at Orchid, the alleys in Newport Shores we're especially proud of. They went very well, and the citizens out there were very happy with the work that was done. The Marine Avenue Bridge pavement resurfacing that went very well as well.
This was Steve's birthday present, that he got to have more accomplishments than everybody else.
And then some nearly complete projects that we're really proud of, and hopefully going to be celebrating those soon with our city council here, and we'll have some events. The Back Bay Science Center, which is coming along very nicely, Newport Coast Community Center, and the Santa Ana Heights Fire Station and Training Tower, which are all moving forward on budget and on time. Key challenges for the upcoming year. Obviously, we're still in the process of pursuing our ambitious and wide-ranging CIP. We're going to put extra emphasis on meeting construction schedules in the budget. As I mentioned during the CIP, we're going to be submitting to you quarterly updates on the budget and schedule, so you can see how we're doing, how we're performing, and which projects are working out okay and which ones need some help. We're also going to big focus on modernizing our traffic signal system. We're also going to be looking at some creative ways to manage projects and staffing so we can keep going forward with delivering projects that you're accustomed to getting. Essentially the reorganization, and that's what that reorganization is really about, is to provide a good service to the city and to provide that CIP, as well as being able to be responsive to the council and the community to get what needs to be done on time. We're also looking to improve the development review process. We're working very closely with building and planning and the other departments, and that's coming along very nicely, and we're hoping to see some results in the upcoming year. And of course, the big issue for us lately, and I'm sure you've heard this from everyone else, is retaining employees, training employees, and selecting new top team members. As you know, we've had some troubles with recruitments. We went out twice actually 3 times to get an inspector position filled. We had a lot of difficulties recruiting for an associate engineer position, and although recently things have gotten better on the junior civil engineer level, and of course you know the story behind the city engineer recruitment was not that successful as well. So we're struggling a bit in the recruitment areas, but we're hoping that can be helped out by a reorganization and kind of repositioning some of our reorganizing our positions so they're more attractive in the marketplace. And that's pretty much my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Anyone in council have questions of Steve? Go ahead. Oh, I said Steve. That's Mike handles the lights. Okay. Anyone else? No?
Just one quick.
No, sure, Keith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, this is a CIP question, and I know that Homer and I have talked about this, but just to get it on the record, there's no money in the budget this year for the Oasis second phase of final engineering once the architectural plans are done. I just want to confirm it's our plans to come back with a supplemental budget request when that's ready to go, so that doesn't need to be held up to the next budget session. Is that how you're seeing that project?
Yes, that's correct, and I my sense is that at some point, I know the council, I know the finance committee is going to be working hard on this. The whole idea of how to fund all the upcoming facilities is going to be a big question, and I'm sure we'll resolve that to the satisfaction of the community and move forward with the Oasis project as everyone intends to. I know there's a lot of excitement, and we're ready to move forward with it as soon as we get that concept plan soon.
Councilman Curry, I guess that over the last 6 months, I've understood that's the way the council wants to proceed, almost on a step-by-step basis. As before, we would come up with some kind of cost estimate, and 2 years later, the thing would be 40% of what it takes to build it. So that's what I'm hearing from the city council, how you want to move forward, so that every step of the way it would be coming back to you, and you would see what the bids are. And we really don't establish, a good number until there's a good number out there to create.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Beadham. Dennis, you had some kernels of wisdom you want to impart upon us?
I do. Can we have the lights one more time? I'd like to spend, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I'd like to spend about probably 10 minutes going through some budgets that really don't fit neatly in any other department's presentation, and it shouldn't take us very long. The first one is the Insurance Reserve Fund, made up of 3 components. The first one being workers' compensation. You can see that the current year's budget is $2.4 million, and we're remaining relatively flat for the new fiscal year, proposing about $2.5 million. And that covers such things as claims administration, permanent disability, temporary disability, medical payments, legal, and, of course, our excess insurance, of which the premium on that is $500,000.
Dennis, and so that amount would not include any adjustments in reserves. That's simply the annual operating number, if you will, for workers' comp.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Much the same is our general liability, again, remaining relatively flat at almost $3 million. And that, of course, includes claims administration, attorney fees, claims excess, and our excess of insurance of $750,000 and our property insurance of $840,000, which makes up the largest component of that budget. Same answer, no increase in reserves.
Do we have any sense of how our claims activity stacks up versus other municipalities of our size? These look like large numbers, but of course a big component is the actual insurance premium cost. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts.
I think that's better addressed by Lauren Farley, our risk manager, but I know she looks at that.
Councilmember Henn and Mayor and council members, our claims activity for general liability, just to talk about the general liability budget for just a second, we've run in the last 6 years, we were 126 claims in ending fiscal year 2001, and currently our fiscal year ending June 30, we're about 103 claims. We've fluctuated as high as 192 and have fallen in around 150 for those other years. For our size city, since we're a full-service city, we have the beach, we have other types of activities that other municipalities with our same size don't have. Our claims activity is about on average. We don't see a lot of spike per se. We don't have a lot of police activity type claims. We don't have a lot of fire activity, medic type claims, and so ours are mostly in the trip and fall kind of claim and so forth and so on, even though, we've got a great, sidewalk replacement program and so forth.
Lauren, would a claim include a situation where a person says, okay, city trees, roots have cost them money as far as, sewer lines or something like that? Is that considered a claim?
That's correct. And for some of those who have been around for some time, we had a lot of those types of claims in the late 90s into the early 2000 years. And with replacement of trees and taking trees that weren't the best tree for that area and replacing those, we really have reduced those types of claims. But those types of claims are mostly property damage claims.
We also have done a more regular trimming program, which reduced the activity on some trees, too.
That is correct.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Councilman Ham?
The third component of our insurance reserve fund is our compensated absences fund, and this remains flat every year. This covers such things as termination pay for employees that have sick leave or vacation on the books when they retire, as well as flex leave pay. So this is the amount that we spend annually on an annual basis. Retiree insurance fund, slight increase this year, $3.1 million. That covers PERS premiums for our retirees, retiree health, and of course, it includes $1.7 million contribution to our new MERP program, which is Medical Expense Reimbursement Program, which is the new retiree medical program that went into effect in January of 2006. And we've talked about that quite often. Debt service, these are the outstanding debt issuances for the city. You can see we don't have very much. Top line is rolling stock leases. That's for fire trucks or what have you, and they all mature 2008. Our water revenue bonds mature in 2009. We have a Balboa Marina loan, which is a state loan, pre-annexation agreement, which matures 2017. Library COPs 2019, and a Section 108 loan, which was used for Balboa Village, matures in 2024. The rest of these, we really don't have to spend any time on. We get various police grants that we of course budget for. Narcotics Asset Forfeiture Fund, $78,000. That's really an estimate of what asset seizure that the police department may have access to. We have a supplemental law enforcement service fund of $120,000, same as the current year. We have SB 2766 funds that provides for money from AQMD for air pollution type things. $26,000. We use it for a ride sharing program. We used to use it to purchase clean air vehicles, but the money's drying up, and so there's hardly anything left. You can see we're estimating $26,000. And I think the last one I have here, or next to last, I'm sorry, is our ELF fund, environmental liability. That's really the purchase of liability insurance, environmental liability insurance. $90,000 is the premium, and that's the entire budget for that fund. And then finally, the Ackerman Fund. This was a donation of property to the city and UCI, University of California, Irvine. We get a portion of it. The property's now been sold. And this is just the interest earnings on that endowment. The cash balance of that fund is about $1 million. This is the interest earnings on that fund. It can only be used for high-tech equipment at the library or a small amount for a scholarship program for city employees or residents. And I believe that's the last one I have.
Why is that almost half this year of what it was last year?
It's just, it depends on interest earnings, and it's just an estimate. We will distribute whatever is earned by that fund.
We haven't gotten into we aren't spending the principal, though.
We are not allowed to spend the principal, no.
Okay.
And that's really it. Again, those budgets don't fit neatly into any other department, so I just wanted to share that information with you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay, I'll open it up for public comments on non-agenda items. Seeing no one, we'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you.